All right. So, ladies and gentlemen. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yo,
I'm not
dude's
gonna
putting me on the spot, man.
I'm
Damn.
not gonna dive in like that. I'm not gonna dive into.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, bro. It's been a minute.
It has been a
Yeah,
minute.
it's been a minute, man. It's been a
So
minute.
first and foremost, I'd like you to introduce yourself to my audience, and then I'm gonna tell them what we're gonna be talking about today.
Okay. So look, my name is Xolo Songca. So look, I talk a lot about current political issues, history. I'm an author, so I've done 2 books. In fact, 3, but I've only published 2. I'm in law, like I was saying, and I'm also in pharmacy. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just a simple guy, really.
Okay.
Nothing spectacular.
Just a simple intellectual. Just a simple intellectual. But now we live in a very new world. We live in a very different world.
Yeah.
And we live in a very new South Africa. And with this new South Africa, there are new ideas about what it means to be an African, what it means to be black. Because those notions of your identity are not just crafted by our people now, but they're also crafted by the media that we consume.
Sure. Yeah.
So the first question that I've kind of got to ask you is, in your opinion, what does it mean to be black?
Okay, for me, like personally, right? I'm gonna just look at this objectively for now. Personally, it's a way of life, man. It's a state of mind, and it's an acknowledgement and an acceptance of who you are, right? And to wear that proudly. I think that's where the whole notion of 1970s, 1980s theme Black consciousness comes from. It's just it's not to say that you are superior, not to say that you are inferior. It's just to say that you recognize yourself, right? And you're proud of that. So it's like an attitude. Like I'll make a typical example, like with hip hop, for example, right? The fundamental aspect of hip hop is it's attitude. It's a culture, right? And it's a way of people wanting to identify themselves and with their surroundings. And that's how they voice themselves out. And that's pretty much how hip hop was born. It's the exact same thing with being black, right? Or it's the exact same thing with being any other race of a person, right? It's an acceptance of self, and it's a love of self. It's a way of life every single day. So yeah, I think for me that's how I look at it, really.
Do you believe that there's activities and actions that are tied to being black? Because people will say things to me like, "Oh, Sipe, you're not black because you never grew up doing so and so," or "Sipe, you're not black because you don't do such and such."
Yeah.
Like, do you think that there are intrinsically deeds or things that people do that makes them black? Are there attributes that you need to have that defines you as black? And if you do not do these things, you are other?
Yeah, like with there's a lot of that misconception is carried throughout. I mean, you go to the township, right, for example, and you find that maybe you're eloquently spoken, you speak nice English, right? And then, they'll call you all kinds of names because it's like, okay, like you're trying to be white or you're trying to be this or whatever. But it's not necessarily what you do that makes you identify yourself with who you are. It's literally, you don't have to do anything. It's just being able to wear it with pride and not feel ashamed of it, right? Be proud of each and every attribute that comes with being black. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to prove anything to anybody, right? Because I feel like there's this perception that we've always had to prove ourselves, and we've always had to, some people feel like, okay, I'm not black enough, or I'm not white enough, or whatever, right? Because they want to identify with a particular group of people so much that they haven't identified with themselves yet, right? So you wouldn't really have to do much, man, to be proud and to identify with yourself first before you look at it like subjectively and think about what people perceive it to be. But you have to really look at it in an objective fashion and introspective, like, okay, this is who I am, this is who I'm made. I don't need to come across any way to anybody else, right? I can speak however I want to. I can live however I want to. because like it's literally intrinsically a part of you. You can't escape it. So it's not about really your deeds, you know. It's just about you just living your truth, man, and just navigating your way through it.
So then my question to you, and I'm gonna be asking you a lot of questions today.
Yeah.
Why then, and you might not have this answer for me, why then, as Black people, do we divide ourselves on invisible lines of blackness? Why do we segregate ourselves within our own groups by stating that so-and-so is not Black enough, so I am better than them or they are less than me?
Yeah. You see, I strongly feel that attitude, right, comes from a certain type of what's the word for it? A mental programming that throughout the course of history has been instilled, right? You find that in the pre-colonial era, certain lines didn't exist, right, between people of color, right? So post-colonial, right, these things have been programmed through time, right? They've been programmed that, look, if you're Black, this is how you're supposed to behave. If you're white, this is how you're supposed to behave. And those are the effects of colonialism. Those are the effects of our history. So everything we are now and how we look at ourselves and how we identify with ourselves as to how Black we are or how white we are, because we need to understand that colonialism and apartheid and all those things didn't only affect Black people, it also affected white people as well. It played a major role in how they see us and how we see them, right? So it didn't really put us in prison, it also put them in prison as well. It was that vicious. And so we're living off of that and we're trying to navigate, because look, I mean, I'm born in 92, right? So we're just like the first generation out of that. So we're still trying to navigate our way through and actually come to terms with how we're gonna move forward, right? I think going forward, like the coming generations, it'll be much easier, right? Things like racial lines, and because dude, you even go on TikTok, right? And you see these kids like, you know, Boma 2000 and all of that. Those guys don't care. They're just living their lives, man. Like they're just living their lives. They don't care who's Black. They don't care who's white. They just living their lives. They do not care, right? Not necessarily also not that.
Don't you think that Boma 2000s are taught notions of Black and whiteness from Western television?
Yes, definitely they are. Definitely taught notions of Black and whiteness off of Western television. Look, Westernization is a real thing. It's always gonna, it's part and parcel of who they are, really. But I also do think it's very important, right? As much as they are now more integrated than we are, because with us, there's still that thing, you know. It's not that easy for us to integrate in an interracial fashion. But for them, it's very easy. So even if they do have that Western influence, but for them, it's getting easier. And that's a good thing, because we need to realize what kind of country we're living in, right? So we do want people to come together on an interracial basis and to mix with one another, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I think with that, I think we're slowly starting to take a step in the right direction, you know what I mean? So let's see what happens in the next 20, 25 years or so, man.
So now here's my thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in South Africa now, we have a new young generation of Black youths that are speaking their vernacular languages less and less and less and less, which is creating a deep sense of resentment from the older generations that were essentially forced to not speak their language in schools. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think that this is furthering the notion of what is defined by Blackness by creating the emphasis of, are you Black if you do not speak your vernacular language? What's your commentary on that?
Look, I think firstly, with the book that I was currently working on, I speak extensively about the issue of vernacular language and how it's becoming lesser and lesser enforced, and just, you know, people aren't really speaking your Xhosa and Zulu anymore as much as they used to. I always say, look, people have this thing that in English is a sign of intelligence. It really is not, right? And I think we're starting to come to the realization of that. And I speak extensively about, look, I think even in our school curriculum, I think these things aren't enforced enough. You find even a typical thing, like a sign on the road, right? you will find an English version of it, and then you'll find an Afrikaans version of it, right? It's hardly English and Zulu, or English or Xhosa. You know what I mean? So I think the system itself is still, in a sense, meant to
unless it's
accommodate.
something offensive, unless it's
Unless
like
it's something-
my
yes.
dog is gonna bite you.
Yes, exactly.
Then it's that stupid Tata Machance bullshit.
Exactly, right? unless it's something like that. Otherwise, look, if we don't enforce this notion of bringing our languages to the fore, they will slowly disappear. They really, really will slowly disappear, right? I'm all for, our kids speaking good English, right? I'm all for that, right? But I want my kids to know Xhosa, right? Because I'm Xhosa, right? And I've always made sure that I've stayed very fluent with that. Or like with your kids, you'd want your kids to remain or to know how to speak Zulu fluently, right? They can speak English as much as they like, but we really need to enforce that notion of having our languages being more introduced in the school curriculum, being more introduced in classes, from an elementary level, really.
Do you think we have an inferiority complex when it comes to our languages? Because something that I've always noticed is that, like, a French guy will sound like a fucking idiot trying to speak English.
Yeah. Exactly.
But if you hear a vernacular speaker trying to speak English and they're messing up, you'll laugh at them. But you won't laugh at that French guy who's...
You never will, right? You never. It's exactly how you put it. It is an inferiority complex, right? Like, for example, even myself, right? If I'm reading something in English, look, it wouldn't even take me a minute to finish or complete a page. But if I'm reading something in Xhosa, dude, it takes me a minute. Like, it'll take me about like 3 minutes to read through that entire page, which is the problem, right?
Yeah.
So this thing of us, because like you were saying, with a French person, we would laugh at them if they weren't fluent in English. But we laugh at one another, right?
Yeah.
We always laugh at one another. We laugh at people in parliament. We laugh at,
people laugh at their grandparents.
Dude, about Jacob Zuma mispronouncing numbers. Like, we laugh, right? We do it because it's just the way things we've been programmed that way. But a Frenchman or a Spanish person, right? They can easily stuff up speaking English, and we wouldn't be like, oh, no, he's French. It's fine. He's Spanish. It's fine. But you're Zulu. It's not okay. You can't stuff up English. But, and another thing, when you look around you and you see that you find somebody of like a different background, like, or a different race, speaking isiZulu, or let's say maybe like a white person speaking isiZulu, right? And you'll see people are like really thrilled. It's like, yo, but it should be a normal thing. It should be a normal thing. Look, if I go and live in France today, or if I go and live in Spain today, dude, calling you Spanish, La Pana, and that's that,
Exactly.
right? I need to adapt, bro. I'm in Spain. I have to, right? No matter, even if it takes me 5 years, but I'm staying in Spain, right? These people speak Spanish. So it's the same thing here. There is no excuse. Like, for me, it's always like a matter of like, if I see a white person speaking his Zulu, I'm like, okay, cool, that's good. That's the direction that we want to go to. But I'm not gonna be like, yo, dude, like, yo,
Not gonna fucking
yo, dude, like, which rap planet did you come from? No, like, I'm not gonna praise it, but I'm all for it. I'm all for it because we are in Africa, right? We are in Africa. So I think, like, even with ourselves, actually, look, I think it's a great thing if you go and you learn Afrikaans, dude. It's fine, right? It's fine. Let's learn each other's languages because we're here together. We're stuck with each other, basically.
Yeah.
So, look, there's no because this is another thing of if you understand my language, firstly, it's a sign of respect.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big sign of respect.
Massive.
It shows me that you see me.
Exactly.
And that's how we African people are that's how we're molded. Like, if you can speak my language, this is what Mandela used to do, dude, when he came out of prison. He met with these people that incarcerated him, and he was speaking in Afrikaans, right? And for them, it was like, wow, there's this black guy speaking Afrikaans. This man gets us, right? So learning somebody's language is a sign of respect, and to show them that you see them. So when you like, for example, I was making that example about going to Spain, and I stay in Spain for like 30 years, dude. and the only thing I know how to say is like hola or what, something like that, and that's it. I mean, they'll look at me and be like, nah, this guy doesn't respect us, man,
But in South Africa, there'll be some Italian guy living in Cape Town who's got a staunch Italian accent, who can speak not a lick of Afrikaans, vernacular, nothing.
Exactly. You see, so that's exactly my point. Language is a crucial part of breaking these tensions and breaking these racial barriers that we have, right? Because I think, and it's something that we should all play a part in doing. Because look, we're all one thing, right? We all need to play a part in building this country up, bruh.
Yeah.
We all need to play a part.
That's something people forget. Everybody thinks you're just going to do your own thing, make your success, and the rest of the country's going to be dope. It doesn't work
like that. We all need to play our part, right? And this whole thing of like what we're doing now, we're pointing fingers at each other, right? Pointing fingers at each other. That's not going to solve anything, dude. The fact is we're stuck together. That's it. Like, we're not going to look, as much as we're the majority of people, because we are in Africa, right? We're not going to tell every white person to leave. We don't want that. We're not going to tell every Indian person to leave. We're stuck together.
Yeah, Idi Amin tried that.
Yeah, look where that got him, right? You can't. We're not going to. We can't do that. We're all one thing. We're South Africans, right? But whilst we're here together and we're stuck together in the same house and we can't leave, let's make it work.
That being said, you talk about early on. You were just talking about the racial division, the racial borders between us. I need to ask this question, though. I wonder, has classism trumped racism in South Africa?
So with the economic system that governs us, right? If you remember, back in the 1956 Freedom Charter was drawn up, the people shall govern, a socialist economic system where people will share in the wealth of the land and all of that. Right? Yeah. Right? We people will share things equally and this and that. All of that is utter bullshit, right? It's not happening. We are literally in a full-blown capitalist economy, capitalist system, which breeds one thing. Firstly, people, dude, like, you go on Twitter, hey? There's some girl that posted something and I was like, yo, yeah, it's getting bad, ne? So she says, look, man, I'd never date somebody who I'd have to take a taxi to get to, right? And then this other guy commented and he's like, do you understand that you're living in a country where the majority of people are unemployed? It's a huge percentage. Do you understand that owning a car in this country, it's difficult. It's not easy, right? It's more a luxury than anything.
It makes you like top 10%.
Dude, it makes you like top 10% owning a vehicle. It's not something that's just cut and dry, right? So like the classism issue, it's become such a thing. I think it hasn't really trumped the racism issue, because I feel like in a sense, the two go hand in hand, right? The two go hand in hand. Because with classism, firstly, there was racism, right? And obviously, if I'm racist towards you, I'm already looking down on you anyway, right? So with the current economic system that governs us right now, it's a problem, bro. Because we're living in a country where there's the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots don't have nothing, bro, right? And the haves just keep acquiring wealth and acquiring things. And
the haves are reaching international standards.
International standards, bro. International standards. It's not even a matter of and the thing is, with the capitalist economy, it breeds a whole lot of greed, ne?
Yeah.
A whole lot of greed, and it breeds a whole lot of people who just want to look out for a particular minority of people, like a monopoly, where they just monopolize everything for themselves. And the poor people, they are thrown out, dude, right?
And greed has destroyed our country.
Yeah. Greed has destroyed, it's done. It's done. And this is the thing, right? That's what I think, I don't remember who was touching on this topic, where, look, private business, right? Corporate South Africa and the government, they do work together, right? But for their own benefit, right? It never really gets down to our level.
Yeah.
Right? It never really gets down to our level, bro. Right? Like, fine, we're much more fortunate than most people, because it really is bad. Like, you look at the geographic way in which we're set up, right? Which I mean owes its credence to apartheid, right?
Yeah.
And you can see the level of poverty that people are going through. It is crazy. You go to Cape Town, you know, like from the airport driving and you're passing Khayelitsha and you're going there and you're like, listen, man, this is crazy.
How is this okay?
How is this okay? How are we
You
so
can
unequal?
drive past like 10 kilometers of just shacks. Shacks. And then you just move.
You see a baby there running with like no underwear, dude. His weenie is just like moving, and it's just a mess, bruh. It's a mess.
And then you go to Sea Point, and it's opulence. And then you got girls with headphones, with their cell phones
chilling in the coffee shop.
Chilling in the coffee
shop. You know
shop
what I mean?
Bootleggers.
And then someone's just jogging, you know? And it's like,
meanwhile, people are fighting for their lives in Mitchell's Plain.
People are traveling from Khayelitsha or Langa or wherever, and they're traveling to these areas, right? To these prominent areas to work there. And the thing is, with Cape Town, they have a huge labor force, which is black labor. And if you have black labor, you have cheap labor, right? And that's just how it is. So you see in the mornings, dude, you know, if you just study,
you see the exodus.
Yes, if you just study the social character of people and how they move, because the last time I was there, I literally wanted to do this. I was like, okay, let me just study how people behave on a daily basis here. So we took a walk up to Table Mountain. This was about 2016. Took a walk up to Table Mountain, right? And as you walk up there, dude, like people are just chilling, bro, like coffee shops, and you're like, listen, this is not South Africa, dude. Like, where is this place? It's gorgeous, right? And you're seeing people there, and it's like, maybe it's like a Monday morning, bro. Everybody's supposed to be at work, right? And there's just people there chilling in the coffee shops, just relaxing, you know, and you're like, you know what, this is the life. And most of those people are predominantly white people, right? So not much has changed. A lot has, but wealth is still largely...
If they're not white, a lot of them are foreign.
If they're not white, a lot of them are foreign. There's a lot of foreign people in our country. Like, it's not just, you know, from Africa. You've got a lot of Greeks. There's a lot of Greek people in our country. There's a lot of Italians. People. There's a lot of Italians and the works, right? So, yeah, dude, it's compelling.
I was in a very serious relationship with a French girl. And I was amazed by the disassociation.
Yeah.
The manner in which her and her family were able to disassociate the difficulties of what's happening to poor people in France to what's happening directly in front of their doorstep. Like, it was amazing for me how they could sympathize for like people in Israel, but you get frustrated at the homeless kids who come to your car for money, and you're like, I just wish they would be like less hungry.
There's this perception. There was this. I don't know if you saw this video. It kind of just like went viral. I think there's this lady from Boksburg, and there's that voice note of hers that leaked. I think it was like a community thing, and they were talking about I don't remember. And then she ended up saying that, you know, animals are much more important than black people. She was saying like some really, really vile things, right? And when you look at it, right? When you look at it, there's a lot of, especially with this older generation, right? They just don't want to let that go at all, right? They don't want to let that go, and they're feeding that to their children, right? And they're feeding that to their children, and it's toxic, bro, right? And the thing is, what you're saying with the French girl that you're telling me about, one thing that many people, or like rich people, even some rich black people, right? I'm not even just referring to rich white people only, just rich people in general. They are in such a bubble, bro. Like, they're in this bubble where it's like, you can't coexist. Like with Cape Town is a lovely example, right? You can't coexist with people whom you know are struggling, but you are in this insulated bubble, and you just are so good at pretense and just turning the other way. Like, for you, it's like you are living it. Like, sometimes there's people that you talk to, there's some white people that you talk to, and you literally see that this person is literally in their own world, dude. Like, they're in their own world. They are in this circle where it's themselves, their family, taking trips overseas, this and this and this, completely insulated with what's going on. Like, I mean, these people drive to the airport to and from. They see it, right? But it's just like turning the way. It's like, I'm not involved. Like, I mean, I don't know, right?
Just putting the radio up.
Yeah, just put the radio on and I'm not involved. Now that's the problem. Like, how do we go forward, right? And that's my problem, mainly with like opposition parties, like parties like the DA and all these other opposition parties.
Because they brush under the rug.
Yeah, more especially the DA. My issue, look, I wouldn't mind voting for the DA at all, right? I personally at this point, I hate the ANC, bro. Like at this point, and I think a lot of people share a lot of those sentiments, right?
Yeah.
Like they failed.
Most of the country.
Plain down, they failed, right? And a lot of people now have this thing. It's like, oh, look what happens when we're run by a black government. Like you see, once we start having that mentality, now that's a problem in itself because we're still being led by race. We're still being led by that issue of race. So, okay, we gave them the country back. Look at what they did. They fucked it up, right? And look, you can't tell me a small minority of people, because it goes to this thing of, but we'll get to that later, right?
Yeah.
But they serve a minority of people, just themselves, right? They just want to enrich themselves. My problem with the DA is one, right? The Western Cape is wonderfully run, dude. They're doing a great job.
I disagree with that. I don't believe it's wonderfully
run.
I think the inequality is so
I want to get to that. Yeah, I want to get to that. The inequality, you see, when you cater for a certain minority or a certain group of people, be it middle class, be it white, be it whatever. If you cater for a particular group of people, then you're not doing a really great job. If we're still seeing people in Kwalanga, people in Khayelitsha, people in all of these other townships in Cape Town, still struggling the way that they did, right? These guys aren't campaigning there. These guys are for the middle class and for the upper class people. So then how do we trust you? Like, how do we trust you? Like the way that they're campaigning, it's not making sense. It's like, okay, you're looking at them, but you're also like suspicious. You're like, okay, sharp. But like you guys, like, how do we trust you? How do you win votes? Because look, the best way to win votes is attending to the poor people, because those are the majority of people. Those are the people that you should be campaigning. Those are the people that you should be.
Not thinking that you're above them.
And not thinking that you're above them. Have you seen the DA in Khayelitsha? I've never seen them. Have you seen them in Walanga? I've never seen them. Have you seen them in Soweto? Have you seen them in Kwamashu? No.
But
right?
I know that Jacob Zuma is a champion of the poor.
Right? And that's the thing. I know that
he's an inspiration to the common man.
And that's the thing, right? So the media will bash you. The media, once you start to do something that benefits poor people, more especially, or wants to uplift people, or wants to even like enlighten them like mentally, then you're a problem, right? They will smear you, dude. The media will kill you. Because like media is privatized on its own. Like
even Mr. Beast right now.
Exactly. Exactly. He
gives 20,000 South African kids school shoes and everybody's talking about how he's profiting off of philanthropy.
You see? It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, they said Zuma had a huge mansion in Dubai. Dude, like all of these things, they are there to show you that the way that the system is set up, once a leader comes to the fore and really champions the inequality and really wants to stand for the inequality of people and actually uplifting people and poverty and things like that and championing that initiative, then they're going to come after you, right? Then they're going to come after you because now you're messing up the system. For them, it works, ne? It works perfectly. So if somebody now comes to the fore and they're like, you know what? This guy's going to be a problem. Same thing with people like Abo Steve Biko, bruh. Like they had to get rid of that guy because now it's like, okay, now look at it this way. End of the 60s, treason trial, Rivonia trial. These people are locked up, right? Nelson Mandela and all of these people were done, right? Chuck them in Robben Island, and then it's quiet, right? No proper opposition. Apartheid at that point had no proper opposition, right?
Yeah. From
the early 70s, like immediately after they were shipped off to Robben Island, they didn't really have much opposition. And then enter the 70s. Okay, enter Steve Biko, right? A new idea now emerges that, okay, if we're going to actually defeat this system, we need to do it on our own. White liberals, they need to go. Look, because at the end of the day, you can't be in a position of privilege and then come to me and tell me how I'm going to get out of it. Because the white liberals at that time, they themselves, right? How do we trust you, right? How, like, let's build up our way of thinking and our way of consciousness. Like, let's awaken the black mind. Let's say, look, dude, you're beautiful the way you are. Like, you're beautiful the way you are. You're smart the way you are, right? You're equal to everybody, to anybody else, right? So let us, like, that's what black consciousness was about. It's like, we want to sit on our table, negotiate our own terms, and this is how we want to do things. We're not saying that white people are not invited. They are. They definitely are. But on our terms, right? We don't want to take no ideas from anybody else. We've been doing that, and where did it get us? Nowhere, right? So when that idea emerged in the mid-70s, they were like, okay, we're going to take this guy out, because now that's a problem. Once you start liberating people's minds, that's a problem. You can lock people up, but you can never lock up someone's mind, right? I can literally be in prison right now, but like my mind, you can never really, really lock up. So that's what they managed.
Education is the one thing no one can ever take from you.
Exactly. That's what they managed to do for over 360 something odd years.
Now,
right?
wait, with that being said, now we're talking about education. Does that not feel like in this modern era, they have degraded the current standard of South African education to the point where they can control the masses?
Yes, 100%. 100%. You see, like, I don't even know very well right now what's being currently taught. But I remember when I was still in high school, but now things obviously have deteriorated, right? The things that kids are taught right now, it doesn't make sense, right? If we're being taught history, for example, right? We're being taught history. Look, you'll learn about things like the Holocaust and what happened to the Jews, and they'll touch a little bit on apartheid. But, dude, there are so many fallen heroes, even pre-apartheid era, during the colonial period, dude. People like Abo Tletshwayo, Abo Shaga, Abo Sekhukhune, Abo Hintsa. People don't know those people. If I ask a random person now who is Hintsa, he doesn't know what I'm talking about, right? But he will know definitely what Hitler did to the Jews, right? So our history is not documented. Dude, more people died during the colonial era than even the Jews themselves. Like in the Congo, King Leopold II, dude.
Yeah.
He came through.
Nobody talks about King
Mass
Leopold.
murder,
He was a
chopping
bastard.
people's arms off, robbing people of their resources. Congo is one of the richest countries in terms of resources. He was
one of the pioneers of child labor.
Yes, exactly. He murdered people on a massive scale, right? But it's not documented because it's black, right? Black lives are dispensable, right? That's the thing. And this is the problem. This is getting on that same topic. This is the thing. A lot of people are like, remember the whole Black Lives Matter thing came out?
And then those fuckers just stole the money.
And then people are like, yeah, but all lives matter. Yes, all lives matter. But right now we have a crisis. We've had a crisis. We have a crisis, right? Where black lives are dispensable. That's fact. Right? So for people actually to say that black lives matter, it doesn't mean that your life doesn't matter. But right now we are in crisis. Black people are in crisis. We need you to see that our lives matter, because you don't. That's the thing. Look at what's happening in America, dude. It's the exact same thing. Look at what's happening everywhere. Yeah. Right? Black lives are dispensable.
In
right?
Guangzhou in China.
Exactly.
In India.
Exactly.
In Libya.
In Libya. You know, the list goes on and on and on and on of how people have been exploited, right? The history of it and how people were taken from their lands and dispersed and all of these things. Those things are not documented, right? And even our ancient history itself is being narrated in a crazy way. Look at Egypt.
The great black people in history, like Mansa Musa.
Mansa Musa, exactly.
Mansa Musa, sorry.
Right? Exactly. People like that.
The richest man ever. Like richer than Elon Musk right now, was black.
That guy I think I heard a story. He was on a pilgrimage to Mecca, right? Because I think he was Muslim.
Yeah.
He was on a pilgrimage to Mecca, and dude, he just kept giving gold the whole way to everybody he saw. He had so much money, right? But that history is like under the carpet.
He gave away so much gold during that trip to the Mecca that he destabilized the economy of gold. Exactly. For several years afterwards.
Yeah, he destabilized the economy. Exactly. So those things we're not the thing is, my biggest worry, right, is when history now is going to be distorted and changed to suit a particular narrative. Now that's scary.
Well, what do you mean distorted and changed?
Like, in a sense of, let me make an example, like just a typical example of Egypt, right? So Egypt is basically formerly known as Kemet, right? meaning like black land. That's literally where it comes from. Where the word comes from. So a lot of modern ideas, religious ideas, were actually taken from Egypt. Christianity has taken a lot of its knowledge, especially with regards to Jesus Christ, the miraculous birth. If you actually follow the story of Egypt and how these gods actually came into the fore, you find that their stories are exactly the same. They called their gods Amen-Ra, Amenhotep, all of these things. But when you take the word Amen, it's being used now, right? In contemporary religions, like Amen, right? Even in Islam, it's used. So these ideas of like the Son of God and miraculously born,
the notion of the afterlife,
and then he died, resurrected after 3 days. When you actually study the birth of, I think it's Osiris, and I forget their names, right? But the story is exactly the same. Right?
Osiris and Horus.
Yes. Horus the hawk, Osiris and
Anubis.
And then not Anubis, the lady, I forget her name. But the story is exactly the same. And you're like, okay, these are borrowed ideas, right? Borrowed. And look, Egypt is super old, dude. It's super ancient, right? You find that a lot of things, even something as simple, if we had the first libraries, bruh, like
in Mali.
It came from here. And the thing is, history is being changed, right? Even I was watching this interview, I think it was on YouTube, and this guy was speaking, John Forster, right? John Forster was a prime minister back in the days in apartheid, right? And I was just watching this interview, and he's being interviewed by this American journalist. And so the journalist asks him, right? And he's like, is it true that what your government has sought to do is to disperse people from the rest of the land and put them in native reserves with very poor land, 13% of the land, right? For the rest of the population, and you've kept 87% of the land for yourself. And you've stripped those people of their identity, right? Their citizenship. And basically it was a matter of, if I was in the Transkei, right? That was my country. If I'm coming to KZN, I'm coming to another country.
Yeah.
I can't just rock up in KZN. I'm not South African, right? And then he explains this thing, which is a huge problem. And it's a huge misconception and a huge lie. So John Forster explains, and he says, look, we didn't displace anybody from their land, right? We didn't displace anybody. When we moved up from the Cape, we found the Zulus were in Zululand, the Xhosas were in their place, and when we got there, there was nobody there. We occupied land that was, and in fact, we arrived there around the same time that they arrived, because look, we're known as the Nguni people, right? The Abantu, the Ntu people, right? So basically, according to him, we migrated, right, from the north around the same time that they came up, right? So when they got there, there was nobody there. Absolute garbage, right? Okay, absolute garbage. That's my thing, right? Let's own the history. Let's own the history. Let's tell the truth, right? And then let's find a way to move forward, right? Which begs even the land question. Who's to say whose land is it? Whose land is it, right? People are like, no, the land is ours. We all know who initially the land belongs to, right? But it's contemporary South Africa now, right? We have to understand that land now does more than farming. It's economic, right?
Yeah.
How do we distribute it? What percentage do we give to a particular group? It's not a cut and dry thing. It's very tricky, right? How do you achieve what's this, expropriation without compensation, right? Is it a good idea not to compensate farm owners, white farm owners? Is it a good idea to compensate them? If so, how much? And if you take these things to land claims court, it takes forever. It's very, very complex and very, very tricky, right? Because white farm owners are of the opinion that, look, I've owned this piece of land for 100 years, right? I've done this, I've built this, I've built this. My grandpa, I've got a title deed, I've done this and this and this. Okay, you can't just take that away from me, right? there's laws in place. You can't just come and occupy what I've done with the land, right? So now that's where the tricky part is. How do we now not compensate? But then also begs the question, were we compensated when it was taken? Or were we told to bounce? Simple as that, right? But then now history has changed. It's changed. So now how do we tackle that issue? So it's very complex, I think, the land issue. Very, very complex. Yeah.
So one thing that I have to ask you, right? At the fall of apartheid in 1995, a concept was created. The notion of Ubuntu. Do you think that Ubuntu is a realistic manner or a realistic way of life?
Yeah.
Or do you think it was a pipe dream that was sold to us to stop a civil war from occurring?
So, I look with Ubuntu. It's just basically means I am because you are, right? Like I am because you are. It's compassion. I mean, it's even in our constitution, right? But when you, for example, even when you read our constitution, it's a beautiful document. It's lovely written. I mean, it's really proper. It's one of the most progressive in the whole world. But it's one thing to have something on paper, and it's completely another thing to implement it and be practical about it, right? So with Ubuntu, I am because you are. Is it really that? Is it so? Really? Do we behave like that? Do we behave like I am because you are? Or do we behave in a sense that, look, if you are white, I'm not you, you're not me, right? Or if you're Indian, I'm not you. Or if you're black, right? And the same feeling is being reciprocated to you. So we talk of Ubuntu, we talk about it all we want, but we don't implement it, right? We don't implement it. We still feel unsafe around each other. We still want to tiptoe around each other. We still
That's the thing. We still
it's
feel
like, it's
unsafe
so
around each other.
Crazy. Like if I'm white and like somebody, like I'm seeing this guy coming, it's like, oh shit, like put my windows up. Like we're so guarded around each other. And then like if I'm black and I'm looking at another person, like a white person or an Indian person, I'm like, there's those prejudices that we still have amongst one another. And these things we don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's a problem because we live it every day, right? South Africa, the rugby team will win the World Cup. We'll like each other for a day. And then tomorrow it's back to like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to work, guys. Like, we're here together, right? And so the fact that we're here together, if we're talking about principles like Ubuntu, let's practice it, right? There's no need to be scared of me. If you're white or if I'm black, I need to be scared of you, or vice versa, or whatever, right? So those lines and those tensions that we have that agitate for us to stay away from one another.
Yeah.
That's what we need to talk about these things, because people just want to just look the other way and be like, nah, all right, and then we just talk about it in our homes, like when I'm at home, I will talk about like white people in a particular way. We'll call them names, or maybe when like in a white household, they'll be calling people the K word. Whatever. It happens. It happens. Racism is more institutionalized now than ever before, but it's so privatized, right? It's just kept in small pockets, like whispers, but it's there. It's alive, and it's a disease. And if we don't root out that disease, we're going nowhere. Yeah, absolutely
really
nowhere.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, so, oh wow, we've answered a vast majority of the questions that I was going to ask you, just like naturally.
Yeah.
But now I've got to get on to the big one.
Yeah.
And we touched on this slightly before, but this is the big one, and this is pretty much my final question.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, do you believe that the apartheid government was more capable of leading this country than our current establishment?
Yeah, okay. It brings me back to this thing. I don't know if you were watching this interview. I didn't really get the context of the entire interview, where Vusi Thembekwayo, he was talking about the murder of AKA, and he was like, if it was the apartheid police, they would have caught that killer immediately, right? And look, it was like public outrage, like Twitter went crazy, right? And so he came back and he's like, look, two things can coexist, right? a government can be capable and it can also be evil at the same time, right? Which is true, right? So with this question, I want us to look at it both ways and not be emotional about it and not take it in an objective emotional sense, right? Firstly, apartheid government, let's face facts, right? There are certain things that we have and enjoy right now that were built in that era, right? Afrikaner people are, dude, they are hard workers, right? Those people work. Look at Orania. Look, I don't agree with that whole thing, right? I don't agree with that. I feel like it's got, too many apartheid racist undertones to it. But look at what they do. They work. They really work. Yes, they built this country backs on the backs of black labor, exploiting people, right? Yes, apartheid was an evil, degrading system in every way, right? But there's a flip side of the coin, right? The things that run, look at your private banks, Sanlam, JSC, all of these things that run, right? Multi-choice, all of these things that we enjoy that were actually built, like we were once really the envy of Africa, right? At a certain point, because it was functional. It was functioning, right? You go to public hospitals and people who've been working there for 40 years. They'll tell you, look, back in the days when King Dinuzulu Hospital used to be called King George, right? It was orderly. There was order, right? There was order. But for me, but that order was only meant to accommodate white people, right? The only time apartheid police went to the townships was when they were going to look for you, right?
But the townships had different police. My grandfather was a cop.
Yeah.
And he was like, the way that my gran explained it to me is he was like a sheriff. So he was like the head of like a part of V section.
Right.
And then he would patrol V section and he knew everybody and he made sure that people's lives were like, okay, there. And the white cops, those cops that you're talking about, the ones that would come in, they were like separate entities and everybody hated them. And everybody knew the destruction that they brought, but you respected the sheriff because you knew him. Because you knew Mr. Kiliza.
Yes, like, definitely. So like with this notion of whether apartheid was capable or not. Look, I'm never going to praise an inhumane system. That was a crime against humanity, right? Yeah. And I don't think, because at the same time, whether we don't want to look at it in an emotional sense or not, it is emotional, right? It's traumatic. Our very existence today is a legacy. It's a legacy of it, right? And there's people that are still alive who went through it. So if we want to, I don't know the notion of what Vusi meant when he was talking about how capable they are. I don't know the context that he was coming from, but we also need to be careful of how we want to explain things and also understand people's feelings and people's trauma. Yeah, and understand that a lot of people are still suffering from these things. Like if you're gonna praise the security branch, right? That's what they were known as, the security branch. If you're going to praise the security branch, which was apartheid police, people who raped, murdered, did all kinds of things, tortured, you name it.
People who tortured people,
throwing people off the 10th floor and telling them they jumped. Like really hectic things, bruh. Really hectic
Setting people alive whilst having
setting people alive.
Brandy and coke.
Unmarked graves, the Craddock 4. The Craddock 4. They shot those guys, buried them in unmarked graves, dude. They did horrendous things. They would literally shut you in a room and interrogate and beat the crap out of you the whole time, right? Sleep deprivation.
How Steve Biko died.
Yes, they beat the shit out of him. Like, they didn't shoot him. They beat the crap out of him.
And then when he needed to be hospitalized, they left him for 8 hours.
They drove him all the way from PE to Pretoria, 1,000 kilometers in the back of a van with just a blanket. And he was still shackled. And you tell me that you want to make an example out of those people? No, let's find another example. Like make another example, dude. Right? Like it's like going to Germany and say that, look, man, look, Hitler did some really vile things, but if Hitler was still running this country, this and this, yes, he was efficient. It was efficient at certain things, but we're not going to praise that. We're not going to make an example of that because it's going
Germans don't go, oh,
yeah,
Hitler was bad, but man, we have the Autobahns.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. We're not going to, because it's going to inspire the idea from people. Because let's face facts, right? There's still people, a majority of people, right, who still feel that back in the good old days it was better. So when Vusi spews sentiments like that, it inspires that belief to people, right? Now that was my issue, ne? Was when you say things like that, okay, maybe you didn't mean it in that context, but to other people, how is it going to come across to people who actually think that apartheid was better? Exactly. Now you're going to have a lot of black people following suit and saying it was better, right?
Exactly.
And even in the comments, people are like, yeah, he's so right and he's so right. And that, for me, I was like, yeah, no, man, look, we're
That's
going
ignorance.
backwards.
You don't know it. You weren't there.
You weren't there.
You're 20 years old.
We're not going to glorify that system, no matter what. Look, we have it bad. I hate the ANC, right? And they literally just like the apartheid government right now because they're just catering for their own selves, right? What did Mandela say? He was like, if the ANC does to you what the apartheid government did, then you do to the ANC what you did to the apartheid government.
We
right?
just never did that.
We just never did that, right? We're not going to glorify a system that oppresses people. I'm not going to make examples of that at all. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I think though, with the Vusita Maguire thing,
yeah.
Oh man, I mean, like the dude is cool and everything, but like I worry about the timing of when he did that and how much that's gonna do for his career and all of his stuff.
Exactly.
And I understand that, like, I don't know, I've never seen him talk for the people in a way that hasn't benefited him personally.
Yeah, that's another thing.
So I'm like, bro, I get it, but I think that was a really great chance for you to gain a bunch of clout and for your followers to think that you're so awesome.
Exactly. And he just like literally threw that all away, and he was very insensitive. Like, let me just put it like that. I feel like he was very, very insensitive, and he speaks about something he has no idea of.
Yeah.
There's no statistics about how efficient the apartheid police were, dude. Right? And this thing that they were corrupt as well, right? They were corrupt as well, but for them it was to benefit themselves. And also, there's this excuse that we make for the ANC, and we say, okay, they're catering for the masses of people. That's why it's so difficult for them. That's bullshit. They're not bullshit.
The mail still had to go around.
They're not catering for the masses of the people. They're not doing that, right? Yeah. They're doing exactly what was done to us by the apartheid government. So what do we do? What are we going to do about them? Because we have a problem. But we need to work together. Like, this is my issue with politics. There's just so many differing opinions. Right now we have issues with potholes, load shedding, poverty, unemployment, GBV. You name it, we've got it, right? But what do? We just want to just point fingers at each other. No, you guys did this. No, you guys did that. You guys did. But these guys are just chilling at the top and they're eating. And we're not fixing our own country.
And the guys who are pointing fingers, they're all eating.
They're all eating.
Eating.
Yeah, they're all eating. At
a certain point, it feels like a club.
Exactly, dude.
They know each other.
Yeah. Dude, come on. Like,
if you go to Parliament every single 3 months or whatever, and you see the same people, at what point do you not realize that we're colleagues?
We're colleagues. You're telling me all the stuff that Umalema says, dude, like to Cyril. After that, it's like, dude, that was a dope one. You know what I mean?
Joust.
Hey, that joke you said, hey man, you got me with that one.
I'll see you at your daughter's confirmation.
Yeah, I'll see you at, you know what? like we're cool. Like, you're my boy, But for us, it's like a whole show where they make themselves like idiots, but they are all one. Dude, they cool. They cool with one another. Yeah. We're the ones that look like idiots because we're the ones that are fighting amongst one another now. We're not forming a coalition and saying that, look, man, let's get these guys out of power. You'll see next year at the elections, you'll still see people ANC. Come on, dude, you can even vote for something else. Action SA or COPE or something.
Anything.
Like anything. It doesn't have to be them because they don't have our interest at heart. Dude. They don't.
Never will too.
And they never will.
But man, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm sweating. Yo.
I think this one here is going to be really enlightening and eye-opening for a lot of people. I think a lot of people needed to hear this conversation, and a lot of people needed to really critically think about these topics.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm just really grateful to have somebody like you on the show who's so knowledgeable about this, bro.
Thank you, man. Like, it was a pleasure, dude. Like, what a time. I had so much fun.
In a while, you need to come back.
Definitely.
I need to put you in a debate against some people.
Definitely. That's it. Let's make it more interesting, you know?
Exactly.
Yo, thank you for having me, bro.
All right, guys. If you like more of this, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.